Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Germany 1990 here once again. It's been a while, hasn't it? I'm sorry. A lot of things have been happening to me within the past year, but I'm glad to be shooting more update videos in honor of my 30th birthday. It's Monday, March 2nd, 2020, and have some really nice things to show you to start off the new decade. First off, here's my Sega Genesis Mini that I got this past September, and I also got the Megador for it. And it's only sold in Japan, but it works, but it fits very well in my American Sega Genesis Mini. There we go. Come on, get in there. There we go. Now, another thing that I also got was the Sega Master System of Visual Compendium, and I got something really, really cool to show you. I was one of the many people, actually, who supported this thing over Kickstarter, so my name is in here. Let's see if I can get the quality up. And there it is, William Leo Ganame. That is my real full name, ladies and gentlemen. So, that's going to lead me off to asking, how I want to start things off. I would really like to start things off with how I came up with my username. Well, the story of this started back in 2003. My last name is pronounced Ganame. A lot of people do not pronounce it that way. They say, even if they get the name part right, which they usually do, they do not get the GE part right. They pronounce it Ja when it's really Ga. They pronounce it with a soft G sound rather than a hard G sound like they should. Other people have pronounced it Genemy, for example. Even if they get the gut part right, they get the name part. They get the name part wrong. It's really interesting considering that the word name is in my last name, which is really cool. But the story of my username started back in 2003 when someone not only mispronounced my last name, they also misspelled it. They spelled it G-E-R-N-A-M-E. They spelled it with an R. And a couple years later, thinking about that, I thought, well, I learned it's German. It's a German last name. It's a very unique name, too. And I think, well, that would be a very interesting, thing for me. So I decided to spell it with only one N, but it wasn't, but when I went to make my email account back in early 06, it was with it turns out that was already taken. So I added a second N to it, and turns out, much to my amazement, it wasn't taken, so I used that. And that's what I've been calling myself as on various sites, such as DeviantArt. But then when I registered for YouTube back in early 08, turns out that was taken, so I decided to add my birth year, 1990, to it. So that's how I'm known over here at YouTube, and that's how I'm also known over at Instagram. And another thing I also decided to start doing, and I remember this was back in late 2013, and the story of this started. Now, when I sign my drawings that are seen over at DeviantArt, the B for Bill, and, well, here's what happened. Spring of 2013, I was working on my senior thesis, and it was a German, and it was about survivors during the Holocaust. And I knew, using some German words, I heard of this character that kind of looked like the Greek beta symbol, but it's really used to replace double S in German words. So I used the Greek beta symbol in place of double S in these German words. Well, it wasn't until after I turned in my thesis that I realized it wasn't the Greek beta symbol. It was a character called the EZ symbol. It looks very similar, but there were a few differences between the EZ symbol and the Greek beta symbol. And once I realized my mistake, but later on when I went to check it out, it turns out my teacher not only understood the mistake, he actually made changes to it in the drafts for me. So I gotta hand it to him. But with that in mind, by August 2013, I decided to start as a little pun on my German heritage. I said, I'm gonna when I sign and date my drawings, I'm gonna use the SZ symbol in the place of the letter B. And yes, like I said, I know it's supposed to replace double S, but I just wanted to have a little bit of, fun with my German heritage. Now this specific video I'm shooting right now is for someone over at DeviantArt. She does live in Germany, and a few years ago she was asking me about this, and I had to explain to her. And like I said, my last name is very, very unique. I was asking her about, and is there anyone with the last name Ganame or living over there? And she said, no, not that I know of. Nothing that even comes close to it. And I just said, all right. So really, this video is for her. So if she's watching this, it's part of the story of how I came up with this, with my username. But yeah, I am mostly German. But I'm also part Polish. In fact, a lot of people who live here in Chicago are Polish. But I'm also Italian. I'm also Irish. But at the same time, 100% American, guys. I was born and raised, and here in America. Never stepped foot outside of America. The closest I've been to doing that was seeing the Canadian town of Windsor when I went to Detroit a few years ago. Right across the river was the Canadian town of Windsor, but that was like the closest I've been to ever stepping foot outside the U.S. But coming up is part two. I got some really, really cool stuff to show you, and so I'll see you guys in part two.